Hi everyone, my name is PK, and here I have Manpreet Kaur, I'm very happy to say, a client of the Property Investment Accelerator. She and her partner have built a property portfolio consisting of six properties worth $5 million dollars with an LVR or a debt ratio of about 56%. So it's not like they've leveraged to the hilt. They're very calculated and playing a low risk game. She's also an accountant by profession, not as in just working for someone else, but actually has her own accountancy firm specializing in tax. So actually, we're going to talk about her portfolio and things like how she's brought her partner on along the journey with her. They're obviously a young couple, but work hard and have good borrowing capacity. But we'll go into structures, and she's obviously an accountant, like I said. So we'll go through how she structured her portfolio to best preserve her borrowing capacity, how she thinks about capital gains tax events, especially when it comes to consolidating your portfolio, like maybe selling some properties and using the profits to pay off the others. We'll talk about a few other things related to taxes, like debt recycling structures and things like that. But I'm really, really happy for her because she's a hardworking person based in Brisbane, and this whole portfolio is only like 4 years old. So it's remarkable that it has an LVR around around 50%, despite it growing so fast. So Manpreet, as I said before, I'm really happy for you and your partner and everything you've done, and I'm grateful that you're able to make time to kind of share your learnings, share your insights, share your professional intellect, or how should I say, knowledge as well. This is going to be a great episode. Thanks so much.
Thanks, PK, for having me here. As I said, your course has been a key driver for us to achieve our goals as well. So I'm very grateful for the whole journey. And yeah, great to be here.
All right, well, let's start from the start. Describe for me your property journey even before the course. Like, how did you and your husband get into all of this?
Yeah, sure. Me and my husband got married in 2019, and we went on a search for our first primary place of residence. And that's where we purchased our first property in Brookwater. Which did well. Good buyer came in, and we actually made a bit of money on that just in a couple of years' time. But we obviously wanted to increase our investment portfolio. Me and my husband obviously have goals to have passive income. And we enrolled in your course, and I still remember the week one around the strategy development, and all the tools that you provide in that course were very useful. And yeah, me and my husband actually we got together, sit down. What is the passive income goal here? Really put those numbers into the spreadsheet. What do we want to achieve? And then we work backward from there, that how many properties we need to achieve that goal as well. So that strategy development really helped us put the context into a spreadsheet pretty much. And that was our plan, call it a business plan or a strategy plan to work from, which was really good for us to picturize it and see it. And then I don't know if you recall, but probably we were still renting at that place, but we bought land in Ripley, and the data wasn't matching. And I actually called you, and I got so nervous about it that the decision we have made is probably not correct. But we went ahead with it because we've done the purchase, we built the house. So it was our next investment property that we purchased in 2020. We built the house on it, did all the things absolutely against your course. I would say that, there's land supply there. Then we actually lease it to DHA, Defense Housing as well, for a long-term lease on that. But post-COVID, it did well, as we all know. Like, I would say it's a matter of luck more than anything, the dynamics change in the area. So that was great. So it did well for us overall. The rent kept going up, overall from that perspective. So that was our starting into the investment phase, pretty much. And then following your course, suburb selection, the week two talks a lot about it. And we talk about a lot of data there, demand versus supply, the days on market. That's where we got next into Townsville. So we bought a property in Rasmussen.
Mhm.
We bought it for 335K, and that was back in 2022, just at the end of it. There were some challenges with that property, PK, as well, because there were some termites that were found outside in the garden area. However, when we went through 2 or 3 building and pest inspectors, they told us in Townsville and in those regions, it's quite common to have those outside area, but as long as they're not inside the property, and there's a termite barrier in place. So we took a risk on that a little bit and installed that termite barrier. There was nothing inside the property. And yeah, we also got a discount from the vendors on that as well. And it has done well overall. The property been good. We've been getting our inspection done every year. It's gone up a lot. It's sitting at like, I think, close to 500K now. So did really well for us. The rent is keep going up. So that was another property. Soon after that, we went into, not went into, but bought a property in Perth. Again, following your data and commentary and a lot of feedback that was coming from the mentoring calls as well. We bought a property within 15-kilometer proximity of the Perth CBD, and it has a good development potential. We could actually build 3 houses on that property. It does have one standalone home. We are holding on to it. Again, the rents are good. We also always made sure we were getting rental yield of 6% and above whenever we were purchasing our properties. So just to make sure our cash flow is not strained, always making sure the cash flow is maintaining, the rental expenses and stuff. So that's being a key driver for us. So that was our property number 4. And then we also bought a property in Bunbury region, which in a suburb called Withers. Again, it's 2 or 3 kilometers from the water. Only downside we had that with that the mother was renting the property to the daughter, so we had to kind of take on that lease with the lower rental income, which will go up in the next few months, but we were able to get a discounted price as well of that. So yeah, that's been our journey in terms of our rental properties and stuff. Again, I think cash flow has been the key. As an accountant myself, there's a spreadsheets, I'm looking at the cash flow pretty much every 2 months just to make sure that we are not strained from a cash flow perspective. Yeah.
Sure, sure. And I mean, it's a great journey, and it's great that you've been able to diversify across different states, and also you've been able to do this without sort of needing to go up to regional Queensland or WA to inspect the properties yourself. Was it a challenge to I'm not sure if you're the one leading the charge. It sounds like you were. Like, how did you sort of get your partner on board the journey? Like, was he supportive? Did he understand the concepts of property investing? Because even though your LVR is relatively low, still there's a lot of debt, right? Like, there's over $2 million of debt. So, how did those conversations go over the dining table?
Yeah, sure. It's a very good question because I think I see a lot of couples going through that challenges as well. Coming from a traditional Indian background, there's always this ownership component of PPOR. There's always this element that, there should be no debt. We've come from backgrounds where parents always had paid off homes. They saved their entire life and then bought a house, and that was it, right? And so it was a little bit challenging in the beginning to convince my husband for taking that much debt on. However, when I was able to put that on a piece of paper, explain what we're trying to do, he was actually on board pretty quickly. He was very clear. He still want to be like a silent person in this entire game, and he's contributing his obviously to the serviceability, because of his income as well. However, in the years leading to now, like we've been doing this journey for what 4 or 5 years, it has evolved a lot more. PK now,
Right.
I see him talking to people about property. And I'm so proud of his journey as well, that from not being able to be actively involved, but now getting to a stage where he's actually enjoying it. And he's able to add value to other people's as well by contributing from our experience. And I talk about it, property portfolio, when you're building it as a couple, your journey as in terms of your relationship is very important as well. Like relationship is like a plant, you need to water them every day. So I also never wanted to build a property portfolio at the cost of our relationship. So that was very important to me. So we celebrate, whenever our house settle, we actually go for a dinner, we celebrate as a couple. So that has really helped us, being motivated to go further as well. So yeah, it is a challenge to begin with, but I think with the right mindset, you can explain to your partner and then bring them on a journey with you. And I think that's critical. Like,
Mhm.
if your partner is not on a journey with you, it becomes very challenging you don't want to force someone, you gotta, and going on your own, it's challenging as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's been from our side. It's been doing well. Like I'm very glad I've got a supportive, partner and
Okay, so it's really important to have like, obviously a good dynamic between husband and wife or partners for this to work. Has your journey exceeded your expectations so far? And I'm asking this question because some people think that property is a get rich quick thing, and of course, COVID has made it look a little bit easier than it actually is. Um, but your plan is to get 10 properties. You're halfway there. Do you feel that the next five properties are going to require more effort? Because I think a lot of people, I don't subscribe to this myself, but I'm trying to give confidence to people. A lot of people think, okay, well, we've had the COVID boom, so in the next 5 years, there's going to be no good places to invest. And I always say, look, actually, in the last 4 or 5 years, property prices have risen about 35 to 40%, which historically, for a 5 year period at a national level at least, is not that amazing. We've had many other 5 year periods where the boom has been even more, but I think nowadays the media is so much in your face that we think house prices are going through the roof every single day. So that's one perspective.
yeah.
And of course, there's always a good time to buy as long as you know where and how. But I wanted to get your honest thoughts on, okay, you've been fortunate to, I suppose at least 2021, 2022 was a great period. What are your thoughts for the next 5 years? Do you think you'll keep buying properties at the same rate, or what's your strategy?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, PK. Again, going back to the strategy, our plan is to buy 10. So that is the goal. Because the numbers works on that basis, it's not
Mhm.
just a pure 10 number, it's coming from the strategy development. Um, Personally, I think once you've reached the halfway mark, there is confidence that you've built, that, you've done it before. Two, you've also built a team, right? You've dealt with solicitors, you've dealt with conveyancers, your brokers, I'm an accountant myself. So you've built a team and you've got property managers on the ground as well in different locations. So to me, it's a little bit easier now because
Mhm.
there's experience on hand as well. There's learnings from the experiences. There's lessons learned, and then you've got a team now already, so you're not starting from scratch. So as it always says, with experience, you can do a lot things a lot quicker. In terms of the rate, like we're not in a rush either. As I said, cash flow is the king. That's and our family dynamics may change in the near future as well. Things may change, so we need to consider all those changes in our lifestyle as well when we're looking at it.
Mhm.
In terms of the rapid rate that I think we bought 3 properties in 1 year. I think that is also achievable through the right structuring as well. So I think, in my personal view, there is a lot more potential in the years leading, next 5 to 10 years, in terms of what's happening in the world, in terms of demand and supply in Australia. There's always, locations that are booming. There's suburbs within suburbs. There are properties within particular suburbs that we has potential for growth. So from our perspective, I think there's only good things ahead. The experience and the team building will really allow us to achieve our goal in the next 3 years, potentially. That's our plan. We may do all accumulation in less than that even, and that's also achievable because of the equity we have built up in our existing properties, because of the structures we can use to maximize our borrowing capacity. So there's ways to achieve that in the next 3 years. But even if it takes us next 5, it's not end of the world for us as well. As I said, we don't want to do it personally as a couple at the cost of our lifestyle as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my view on it.
Yeah, cool. Let's get into that structuring then. I think a lot of people might be watching or listening and they're like, oh, I'm struggling to get two properties, let alone three, let alone five, let alone 10, within 5 to 10 years, what has your structuring been around trusts? And, you've taken, I think, equity from your principal place of residence and used it to buy investment properties. Just take us through your sort of lending and structuring strategy, if you don't mind.
Sure, no, that's fine, PK. I work a lot with clients on that as well, and I always say, if not one structure fits all, not one strategy fits all. Every investor is a different. There are people out there who want to buy two properties or want to buy four properties, and there are people out there who want to buy 10 properties. So the structure that is set up at the front plays a key role in your long-term portfolio. Personally, we started with our primary place of residence. We bought it under personal name, both me and my husband. Even the second investment property, we actually bought it just under my name because I had higher income and from a negative gearing perspective. And it was only after that we started considering the trust structure. Um, the beauty of the trust structure is, obviously from a tax perspective, there is one thing that your tax losses, if a property is still negatively geared, or it has taxable loss, even after taking into account depreciation, so your cash flow is positive, but once you take into account depreciation expense, you are in a taxable loss position. That loss is trapped in a trust structure. So you cannot offset it against your PAYG income or your, or sole trader income. So you're not getting that tax benefit or a cash benefit of that tax on a year by year basis. However, it's not that it's lost forever because you are carry forward that tax losses in a trust structure. And when eventually there is a income in a trust or in a CGT event in a trust, that losses can be used against that. So that's the beauty of the trust structure. Now, from a borrowing capacity perspective, depending upon which lender you go to, they look at trust as a separate, which is not even a separate legal entity because trust is just a trust. They look at it very separately to your individual borrowing capacity. So, as long as trust can pay for its own expenses, so a property is self-sufficient within a trust structure, the banks will ignore that trust when it comes to the borrowing for the next property that you do. Now, that's where your relationship with the accountant becomes very important because certain banks will require letters from your tax agents and accountants. And for you to demonstrate that to your accountant that property is able to pay itself, that's important as well. And then the accountant also need to understand your financial position very well before they can write anything on a paper to the bank. So that's one way of, one structure that works very well. Now, there are also, medical professionals or other professional, high income earner professionals out there, who've got high income, and they probably are okay to invest in negatively geared property because, they're not caring too much about the rental income. They're more concerned about the capital growth. So, from our perspective as a couple, we always focus on both. We want active income as well, like passive income. Sorry, from a rental income perspective, we also want capital growth. But for high income professionals whose main target is just for a capital growth, they can purchase it under their individual names, use a negatively geared, benefit, can offset the taxable income. However, they need to be wary that they will be capped very quickly from a borrowing capacity perspective. Then obviously we've got company structures, it's got a 25% tax rate.
Hmm.
Those can be used as well. There are people who are in the businesses, who've got active income in the businesses.
Hmm.
They've got money sitting in the companies, they can transfer from one company to another. So there's strategies around that you can use and then use that money as a deposit for your properties as well. So not one structure fits all. We are in a journey where we're buying our properties in trust, one property, one trust at the moment. And it's not a hard and fast rule. You can also buy two properties within one trust as well. Gotta be, gotta consider other factors like land tax, etc. as well, how that plays, in your portfolio. So
Sure.
I think setting that structure upfront really sets property investor for success.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said, different strokes for different folks. I mean, normally it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a lot of people to buy in a company structure, but I know that I have, like taking income or net income from a business of mine, and instead of paying myself personally a dividend, keeping that and sending it from one company to another company and then investing through that second company. And so that you have a larger capital base to invest from because you've paid company tax, but you haven't paid personal marginal tax rate. So th those are, there's so many different options, and I think everyone should, speak to, folks like Manpreet to get that personal advice. In terms of one question I always had, and I've asked a whole bunch of people about this, but I'll get your perspective as well. You know, the classic approach that I think a lot of people are becoming aware of, where you buy properties in different trusts and therefore you're able to preserve borrowing capacity so long as each trust is self-sufficient. And of course, self-sufficiency means that the property must be either positively geared, which means you may need to put a little bit extra deposit, or you may need to top up the trust, from your own pocket, so to speak, on a yearly basis. Let's say it is self-sufficient through a legitimate means. There are still some accountants. This is a perfect question to ask you because you're an accountant. There are still some accountants who are a little bit like reticent on providing an accountant's letter to sign off that the trust is in fact self-sufficient. And then there are other accountants that, like you alluded to before, as long as you have a relationship with them, they know your finances, they know your prudent financial, I suppose, strategy holistically, they sign off on those trusts and say, yep, Manpreet has this trust, it's whatever trust name XYZ, and it's self-sufficient, or words to whatever that effect. Why why do accountants differ in their approach?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a risk appetite. We can, obviously, as accounting firms and tax advisor, when they're writing that letters, the banks are relying on that letter to, provide lending to mom and dad investors or anyone. It comes to the risk appetite of those, advisors as well. And also, I think there are accountants out there who are not property savvy accountants, who are used to just seeing what's on the paper, not looking at things holistically, not thinking outside the box, obviously, if the contributions that are going to the trust are still sufficient to make the trust self-sufficient, it's a legit way to demonstrating to the bank that the trust is able to pay for itself. So I think that it really comes to the, which type of accounting you're going with as well. So someone who's done that for themselves, who understand the journey, if you know the client well, understand their financial position well, there's a risk element that gets lowered as well from an accountant letter perspective as well. So I think it's really come to the risk appetite of the accounting firms as well when they're writing those letters. So there's no hard and fast rule, but obviously, as a trust, as an like as a property investor, if they can demonstrate that the trust is able to pay for its expenses, then that letter should be okay.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And like looking forward in terms of your own personal journey alongside your husband, let's say looking forward 5 years, 10 years. I mean, you guys already have your principal place of residence. Is your idea that you want to like upgrade that, or is your idea that no, our house is fine, we're very comfortable here. We just want to earn this kind of passive income from our future 10 properties, and then just kind of maybe your husband doesn't work so much, maybe you don't work so much, or like what it's a lot
Mm.
of labor of love to go through
Yeah,
the process of all this. What's the end game for
absolutely.
you?
Yeah, for us, like, we are happy with our primary place of residence. It's a beautiful home. We're in a location where we love. It's probably on the other side, where we are thinking, me and my husband, is should we actually go and do rent vesting,
Oh.
and actually, sell our PPOR and take a bit of money and fast track our journey of, property investing. So we haven't got to that point yet. It's still in discussion phase. In terms of upgrading a PPR, that's not the goal as well. Like, as I said, we live in a very beautiful home. It's probably a lot more bigger than we need. Um, the goal is to be financially free. So when I say the word financially free, it's not that we'll stop working straight away. We love what we do, both of us, but to have the choice to work rather than the need to work. And I've seen our families personally, struggling through their entire life, reaching up to the age 65, and I see all the people around me as well who just cannot retire up until the age of 65 or cannot even think of changing jobs sometime. Like people are working in, let's say, toxic environments for a while, just the, scarcity or or the fear of losing a job, because most of the Australians are living paycheck to paycheck. So if you don't get the next paycheck, how am I going to pay the bills, right? So that stress people go through, we just want to get away from that and make sure that we have a choice to work. And maybe in a few years' time, we may reduce to 4 day a week and have 3 day a week then. That's the plan, but just having the choice to work rather than the need to work. That's where I call the financial freedom. So you can choose what you want to do with your time, and it may be still the same. Like I love what I do. I don't think I'm gonna go away from it anytime soon. I love working with everyday Australians, getting ahead in their lives. You just my main thing is you don't need to be super rich to make this happen. You just need to have a right strategy, right team around you, and a mindset that you can get there, and that's important. Yeah. So for us, it's financial freedom. That's the key goal, making sure we can make choices with our time. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
combined, you and your your husband are on healthy incomes. Would you say, you having gone through the course, having gone through the process of buying multiple properties, of course, you help so many other people through your accounting business, from a tax planning perspective. Would you say property investing still works, for someone who's on a more modest income, like let's say household income of $100,000 or $150,000? I mean, according to averages, that's about average, 150 for a
Yeah,
household.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, like, I'm just trying to get your
Sure.
authentic answer to this question because you have this unique position of being a tax accountant. You're a property investor yourself, and you can see everything from different angles of vision. So is it still plausible for someone like that to build a portfolio?
Yeah, my personal view is absolutely PK. You can start from anywhere. Like obviously, someone who's on a 150K family income, right? If they have got the right financial attitude in their life, like in terms of making sure the budget is prepared, they can manage their cash flow. There's always opportunity within Australia. Obviously, they won't be going for 600, 700K property, but they can always buy a 300, 350, 450K properties to start with. I've also worked with some single moms who's been able to build their property portfolio with a strict regime to their in terms of their financial habits. So I think it's absolutely possible, like for anyone to start this journey, and as they grow their income further as well, their borrowing capacity, they can expand, and it might take a little bit longer for people on those incomes to get to their goals, but they can get there if they get started early in their journey as well. So I think there is a solution for everyone. You just need to have a right mindset and right attitude towards your goal. Yeah.
Right, right. It's especially sweet. I can relate. It's especially nice to work with like single dads or single moms because like they've been through some hardship in their life and life is not easy financially because there's only one person who's the breadwinner. So when these people get ahead, at least for me, I'm sure you're the same, I get a special, I don't know, some tingling feeling about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's what I love about my work, being able to work with people. And as I always say, if my clients get ahead in their life successful in their life, obviously my business grows with them. So I love to see them growing. And it is always that appreciation that really plays a key role, that you've been able to add value to someone's life. So I think with your course as well, that was again for us that it added so much value to our lives. And otherwise we would have been in the same game trying to pay our primary place of residence. And I work with a lot of clients who's still trying to, they're hard. I've been dealing with actually a couple who's paying like $3,000 a month extra just to pay the PPOR, and their lifestyle has been impacted. And when I talk to them, what are you trying to achieve out of it? They're like, we just want to pay it off. I'm like, why do you want to pay it off? What are you trying to achieve? They're like, we want an easier lifestyle. But I'm like, you still have your other expenses, right? Your other expenses are not going to go down. So do you really think that you'll be able to reduce your working hours if that debt is gone away because you've got private kids' fees and other stuff? So again they are planning to come and have another chat to rethink their strategy. So I think again, it really comes from our conditioning as well. I think we all have been conditioned in a particular way
Hmm.
that this a plan and that's the only plan that could work.
Hmm.
But when we start thinking about plan B, then really we can start thinking holistically that there are other ways to make life a little bit easier, smoother for
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah.
It's a bit scary, when you start thinking, oh, look, I rather just pay my debt off on my home, but now PK or Manpreet or some other person is saying, no, don't pay it off, get more debt and like buy all these other properties. It's a bit scary. I can relate to that, but I think education is the key. Like just, like hearing stories like from yourself and so many others and just being like, okay, mapping it out. It's like, all right, yeah, like logically this makes sense. And as long as I can afford the cash flow, like you said, cash flow is king. Cash is not king. I think that's a anomaly. Cash devalues with cost of living, inflation, and currency debasement. It's cash flow that's king. And if you understand these concepts, then all of a sudden it's actually a higher risk to simply work hard to pay off your home loan from your principal place of residence. That's a higher risk approach than investing and doing it that faster way. So that's my thoughts anyway. I know going a little bit over time. Last question from me, or maybe thought is, Manpreet, is there something I haven't asked you or something that you'd like to share that you really kind of have urge to do so before we finish it off?
Yeah, sure. Just a couple of comments I would say is, debt recycling is a very important component in your property portfolio journey from a tax perspective. Even if clients have savings for deposits available, they can still recycle the debt in a way where, they can get the debt out from their primary place of residence or another investment property, get it down, like get it up a little bit, and then claim the interest portion as a deductible, expense, and they can still use that deposit to pay off the PPO debt. So the debt can still remain the same in the PPOR, but if they move it correctly, they can have a higher tax deduction. And the last comment will be around the capital gains tax. So when it comes to eventually selling off your property, the timing of that CGT event becomes very critical. It could make a lot of difference if you sell a property before 30 June or after 30 June. So even
Mhm.
a 1 day difference could help you, keep your cash for a longer period of time because you get extended deadline to pay that tax to ATU when you're on a tax agent list. So these are a couple of tax tips. Other than that, I would say everyone is different. If with the mindset, with the education, if you are a kind of individual who still can't live with that, or seeing that number, it's okay. Then probably this is not for you. And I think everyone is different. You need to have peace. You need
Mhm.
to be able to sleep at night. And our job, like obviously PKOs and needs to educate people. There's good debt, there's bad debt, but every individual is different. So if you can get along on this journey with you, and you can see the fruits at the end of the day, but if it's not for you, that's okay as well. Like everyone is different. Yeah,
Yeah. And it might not be for someone at a moment in time, but I know there's so
yeah,
many people, over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years since I've been doing this that have like said previously, PK, we had to talk to my wife and it wasn't like I understood it, but it wasn't for me. And then like 2 years later, they'll message me on Facebook or send an email saying, yeah, now it's for us. We want to start. Like, how do we do this? So, like, your mind or your circumstances can also change. And I think, listening and understanding these stories from people like yourself, Manpreet, and so many others, they, slowly sort of marinate our limitations or our limiting beliefs, and slowly those beliefs also shift. And there's a lot of good that can come from that. So thank you
yeah.
so much for taking the time and allowing the community to make that shift slowly but steadily through your own journey, successes and insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, PK.
And hopefully everyone, you guys got benefit from Manpreet. I will tag her on the Facebook group Australian Property Mastery with PK. I'm really grateful to have people like her as clients of mine. And, I think you guys should all reach out to a solid tax planning accountant, whether it's Manpreet, you can DM her or something, or so many others that are out there. it's one thing to make money, but the role of a good accountant is to facilitate that, but also make sure you keep that money that you make. That's equally important, if you ask me. So there's more than 200 of these client interviews on YouTube. And like I said before, I really don't mind if you do the course or not, but by going through them, you'll be educated and inspired, and slowly that shift will occur where at one point, it might be a life-changing moment for you and you'll embark on the investing journey, and then 10 years later, you'll thank your previous self for doing what they did. So, thank you for helping the community, Manpreet. I really appreciate it. And once again, congratulations on an amazing portfolio so far.
Thanks, Rikin.